My name is Brian McNiff, and I will be presenting on the Wittenoom asbestos mine and mill in the former township of Wittenoom, Western Australia. The purpose and objective of this presentation is to provide a historical context for both the mine and town of Wittenoom, Western Australia, as well as demonstrate the lasting public health impact that the mine has had on both workers and residents. In the early 1900s, crocodilite, or blue asbestos, was discovered in Wittenoom, where small pick and shovel operations began by local prospectors. In 1943, with state and federal government support, a mine was opened in Colonial Gorge, and operations are taken over by the Australian Blue Asbestos Limited Company, a subsidiary of Colonial Sugar Refinery. Initial operations remained small, producing a total of 300 tons of fiber by 1946, but eventually ramped up to produce 20,000 tons of fiber and 600,000 tons of asbestos waste by 1954. The mine remained in operation until December of 1966, when the company ceased operations in Wittenoom due to a lack of profitability. And by this time, mine operations had created 130,000 tons of asbestos fiber and roughly 2.6 million tons of waste. During operations, a single industry town developed, which provided residents and auxiliary services for the mine's workforce. At the time of the mine's functioning, the population of the town was estimated to be approximately 20,000 people, and after the closure of the mine, the town's population slowly diminished. In 2007, the town was officially degazetted due to widespread asbestos exposure, and as of 2020, no remaining residents live in the former township. Many mine workers were post-Second World War migrants from Europe or Italian workers recruited as the result of a bilateral agreement between Australia and Italy. The population of Wittenoom was largely transient. Approximately 60% of the workforce stayed in Wittenoom for 6 months or less, with the median length of time spent in Wittenoom being 114 days for mine workers and 548 days for non-mine working residents. By referring to Figure 2, we can see that very few workers and residents, about 200 and 650 respectively, stayed in Wittenoom for longer than 5 months. Figure 3 shows years of first employment and residence for both workers and other residents of Wittenoom. Here we can see that employment drops to zero at 1967 due to the closure of the mine, while residencies increases steadily past this point. Due to the high level of transience depicted by these figures, subsequent efforts to collect data on the effects of asbestos exposure on the Wittenoom population have been difficult. The local town and surrounding areas were heavily contaminated by asbestos dust produced from the Wittenoom mine and mill. Much of the construction of buildings associated with the mine, mill, and surrounding residencies relied on tailings made in part with crocodilite mined from Wittenoom, which further increased exposure. According to the Western Australian Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, Wittenoom is the largest contaminated area in the southern hemisphere, and the Wittenoom asbestos management area covers more than 46,000 hectares. The mining operations at Wittenoom resulted in widespread asbestos-related illness. During the period of 1979 to 1994, Wittenoom cases of malignant mesothelioma comprised roughly 6% of the total mesothelioma cases in Australia. Beyond the township, Wittenoom crocodilite was used extensively in asbestos cement products across Western Australia, resulting in the state having a higher malignant mesothelioma mortality rate than in any other state in the country. Studies on the effects of asbestos exposure on the population of Wittenoom have been largely focused on two groups, the worker cohort and the residents cohort. Muscat et al. 2020, for instance, studied 6,895 people from the Wittenoom worker cohort and 5,042 people from the residents cohort. As mentioned previously, due to the high transience of the population of Wittenoom, the number of individuals studied in projects such as Muscat et al. 2020 tend to be short of the township's estimated peak population of 20,000 people. Data on both Wittenoom cohorts have been collected from state and national hospitals, cancer and mortality registers, as well as through mailed questionnaires. Information concerning tobacco smoking history was collected, as well as occupational histories and estimates to subsequent asbestos exposure for both cohorts. And we can see from Figure 4 that of the individuals studied by Muscat et al., all-cause deaths up until the end of 2015 accounted for 5,265 deaths, while asbestos deaths up until the end of 2013 accounted for 133 total deaths. Figure 5 shows the percentage of incident cancers for both workers and residents. We can see that the mesothelioma and lung cancer incidents make up 31.4% and 41.8% of total cancer cases. And while the exact death toll from asbestos-related diseases for Wittenoom workers and residents is a matter of some debate, the Asbestos Diseases Society of Australia estimates that roughly 2,000 individuals from across both cohorts had died of asbestos-related diseases associated with the Wittenoom mine as of 2022. Further, evidence suggests that Aboriginal people have been disproportionately affected by the Wittenoom mining operation, with the population experiencing higher 10-year incidence rates of malignant mesothelioma when compared to non-Aboriginals. As mentioned previously, due to Wittenoom Township's status as a single industry town, the economic collapse of the mine heralded the disintegration of the town itself. And despite the efforts of the local population, both local government as well as the company responsible for the mine failed to conduct cleanup operations. Even with the widespread exposure, the natural landscape of Wittenoom appears pristine and relatively untouched. The area's natural beauty and the history of the mine has caused Wittenoom to become a destination spot for disaster tourism, something that the local government strictly prohibits. In summary, the lasting impact of the Wittenoom asbestos mine and mill has affected the population of Western Australia to the current day. Worker and resident cohorts are still being studied for asbestos-related illnesses. And as a currently contaminated site, the former township of Wittenoom still poses a health risk, and asbestos-related diseases originating from Wittenoom will likely continue to affect visitors and tourists for years to come.